Every evening, after the sun dipped below the rooftops, the small house at the end of Maple Street fell into silence. The windows reflected the fading orange sky, and the front door stood still, with a simple old mat lying in front of it. Under that mat, hidden from careless eyes, was a key. Most people would never notice it, but for Daniel, that key carried more meaning than anyone could imagine. Daniel had grown up in this house. As a child, he used to run up the steps, lift the mat, grab the key, and rush inside, knowing someone was always waiting for him. The house was never locked to keep people out. It was locked to remind them that they belonged. His mother used to say, "The key is there so you never feel locked out of your own life." Years passed and life changed. Daniel moved away for work, chasing dreams he did not fully understand at the time. The house grew quieter. His parents aged, and eventually his mother passed away. After that, his father moved to live with his sister in another city. The house on Maple Street was left empty, but the key remained under the mat, just as it always had. One autumn evening, Daniel returned. The street looked smaller than he remembered, but the house was the same. The paint was slightly faded, and the garden needed care, but it still felt familiar. He stood at the door for a long moment, staring at the mat. His heart felt heavy. Slowly, he bent down and lifted it. The key was still there. As Daniel held the key in his hand, memories rushed back. Laughter in the kitchen, the smell of warm tea, quiet conversations late at night. The key felt warm, as if it remembered him. Unlocking the door felt like opening a part of himself he had kept closed for years. Inside, the house was silent but full. Dust covered the furniture, and the air smelled old, yet comforting. Daniel walked from room to room, touching the walls, the table, the door frames. Everything whispered stories. This place had held his childhood, his fears, and his hopes. That night, Daniel stayed. He slept in his old room, listening to the familiar creaks of the house. For the first time in years, he felt grounded. Not successful, not impressive, just present. The house did not ask him what he had achieved. It simply welcomed him back. The next morning, Daniel noticed something surprising. A neighbor stood outside, watching the house. It was Mrs. Carter, an elderly woman who had lived across the street for decades. She smiled when she saw him and said she was glad someone had finally returned. She told him how she used to see his mother every morning, watering plants and greeting everyone with kindness. Mrs. Carter said something that stayed with Daniel. She said, "Your mother never locked her heart. That's why the key was always outside." Daniel nodded quietly. He realized the key was never about convenience, it was about trust. Over the next few days, Daniel cleaned the house slowly. He did not rush. Each object he picked up carried a memory: a cracked cup, an old photo, a handwritten note tucked into a drawer. The house began to feel alive again, not because it was perfect, but because it was remembered. One afternoon, Daniel found a letter addressed to him. His mother's handwriting was gentle and careful. In the letter, she wrote about how life might take him far away, but she hoped he would always know where home was. She wrote that the key under the mat was a promise, that no matter how lost he felt, there would always be a place where he was accepted without questions. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. For years he had felt like he needed to prove himself to the world. Success, money, recognition, none of it had brought him peace. Standing in that house, holding that letter, he finally understood what he had been missing. One evening, as Daniel sat on the front steps, he noticed a young boy walking past slowly, looking tired and unsure. The boy stopped and stared at the house.
Daniel smiled and asked if he was lost. The boy hesitated and said he had forgotten his keys and was afraid to go home. Without thinking too much, Daniel told the boy to sit for a moment. They talked quietly until the boy's mother arrived, worried but relieved. She thanked Daniel, her voice full of gratitude. As they left, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He realized that some things are not meant to be locked away. Some things are meant to be shared quietly, without making a show of them. The key was not just for him, it was a symbol of openness, kindness, and belonging. In the weeks that followed, Daniel decided to stay longer. He worked remotely, fixed the garden, and painted the fence. People walking by began to smile again. The house no longer looked forgotten, it looked lived in. Sometimes Daniel would catch himself lifting the mat just to check. The key was always there. It reminded him that he did not need to run endlessly. He did not need to escape his past to move forward. One evening, Daniel invited Mrs. Carter for tea. They talked about life, loss, and small joys. She said the house felt warm again. Daniel realized warmth does not come from walls or furniture. It comes from presence. As winter slowly settled over Maple Street, the house began to change in small, quiet ways. Cold air slipped through the cracks of the windows, and the evenings grew longer and calmer. Daniel found comfort in these changes. He started lighting a lamp near the window every night, letting its warm glow spill onto the street, just like it used to when he was young. The house no longer felt like a memory frozen in time. It felt awake. Daniel spent his days repairing little things that had been ignored for years. A loose step on the porch, a door that creaked too loudly, a fence that leaned slightly to one side. With every small repair, he felt as if he was fixing parts of himself as well. Life had not gone the way he once planned, but for the first time, that no longer felt like failure. It felt like a pause that had meaning. One evening, as snow began to fall softly, Daniel stood by the front door and listened to the silence. It was not empty, it was peaceful. He understood then that home is not about holding on to the past, nor about chasing the future. It is about allowing yourself a place to rest in between. Daniel knew the house would never be perfect. There would always be marks of time on its walls, just as there were marks of experience on his heart. But that was all right. Some places are not meant to be flawless. They're meant to be open, forgiving, and waiting. And so the house on Maple Street remained, not as a reminder of what was lost, but as proof that no matter how far life takes you, there is always a way back to where you truly belong.